What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Everything Ministry podcast, where we talk about kids ministry, youth ministry, family ministry, leadership, and building what actually lasts. My name is Collin, and I am your host. So today we're going to talk about strategy, mindset, practical systems to help you stop drowning in tasks and start leading with clarity, focus, and with purpose. Today on the show, we have a very special guest. We have David. David, I'm going to mess it up already. David Reneau. Nope.
Reneau.
We already went over this. Reneau.
That's it.
David Reneau, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's so great to be here, Collin. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm excited to talk about productivity. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. So I'm really excited about what we're going to do.
Man, absolutely. Me too. I'm excited about this. When I was telling my wife this morning, I was like, this is going to be a great podcast. So, so David, if you don't care, just introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, what church you serve at, or how long you've been in ministry and all that good stuff.
Sure. Yeah. I'm born and raised in Georgia. I've been in ministry for 17 years now. 15 of that was in children's ministry. And I just absolutely loved doing kids. After 15 years of doing kids, right around COVID, I started really feeling like the Lord was pushing me to do something bigger, something harder. And so he pushed me to become a lead pastor. So I'm now the lead pastor at Encounter Church in Toccoa, Georgia. And so I've been doing this job for about 8 months now. So it's definitely a different job, but there's the uniqueness of children's ministry is that it definitely prepares you for being a lead pastor because you do so many of the things that a lead pastor does. You just do it for 8-year-olds instead of 80-year-olds. And so there's a lot of that carries over. And so I'm just, I'm trying to figure out this lead pastor thing because there are some differences. So we're just doing the best we can. And then on top of that, I have a blog, davidreneau.org, and we'll talk more about that later. So, but I love writing that. And what I really want to do is I want to help children's pastors and other ministry leaders. I want them to lead well. I want them to lead their ministries well, help them, give them the resources and the practical tools that they need. So the things that I needed so much when I first started out, I want to provide those tools and resources to people when they're first starting out and when they've been in for a year or two, like, okay, how do we get this to the next level?
Right. Man, I love the fact that you're now in senior ministry leadership, but you still have your hand in children's ministry. I think that's super cool. I was telling someone the other day, like, I think, and I know this is a stretch, but I think it would serve every church well if the senior pastor went through children's ministry first.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just to give that perspective.
It definitely helps with the perspective because I even did a stint. I did a year. The Lord delivered me of youth ministry, and because I really thought like I've been doing kids for so long, I can do youth. It's they're just bigger kids, and I learned just how different youth ministry is from children's ministry. But then like now sitting in the lead chair, I kind of understand like, okay, I understand what the worship pastor is doing because I've led worship in children's ministry. I understand what the youth pastor is going through because I led in youth ministry. I understand what the kids pastor is doing. So like I can help them with their problems because I've seen them before and I can help them, develop their strategies. Yeah,
I think that's super key. We have, and I say this a lot, and it's probably just the people who listen probably are just tired of hearing it, but we have an awesome senior pastor who really cares for our kids ministry and our preaching ministry and our youth ministry all together. And, I think that's just so important to have that, to that senior ministry to understand exactly, the ins and outs of kids ministry or youth ministry as well. So, yeah. All right. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about mastering your ministry to-do list. So David, when you hear that, what does that actually mean to you? What comes to your mind?
So there's just so much that we have to do, especially if you're in children's ministry or next gen ministries, the list of never ending tasks. It always piles on. And so you have to, if you're a person like me that just likes to, like when you're done, you like to be done for the day, like you've marked everything off your list, you need to be able to like let that go. And you need to be able to feel like, okay, I was successful today. I may not have finished everything I needed to get done, but I was successful today. And really it helps you overcome the burnout that we feel. Because if you've been in ministry for so long, I saw comments just this week in all the Facebook groups I'm in of people who was like, I'm just really just worn out of trying to do all these tasks and I don't feel support. And part of that is like just all the massive amount of things that you have to do, whether you're full-time or bivocational. Like you still have the same amount of work you have to produce and get all those things done. And so you really need to have a handle on how you're going to do these things and what's the best way to do these and what things we need to give away so that you can have a sustainable time in ministry.
Yeah, that's great. You kind of answered it. That's one of the questions I was going to have for you was because I was thinking about this. I was like, why do so many ministry leaders constantly feel behind? What is it that constantly puts them behind? Is it the daily task? Is it, and I'm just going to throw this out, is it the fact that children's ministry leaders or even youth ministry leaders are wearing multiple hats and that's what's drowning them out? What do you think the cause of that is?
I definitely think it's multiple hats. It's a lot of things to do, but it also, when we talk about multiple hats thing, it has to do with the size of church you're at. When I served at a church of 400, I had so many things underneath. Like I was the children's pastor, but I was also in charge of all the media and the marketing for the church. And then I became like I was the director of multi-site ministries, but I was also still the kids pastor. So like there was just a lot of things you had to do. So I wore multiple hats. Eventually I moved to a church of 1,500 and all they wanted me to do was elementary children's ministry. That because when you get to those bigger churches, you wear fewer hats, but at the same time, like my to-do list was still long. I still had a lot of different things to do. So we have to, if we're gonna be in ministry, we need to understand the task at hand. We need to make room for it, because the one thing that like really motivates me is that we have 168 hours a week to get everything done in our lives. That's spending time with family, that's eating, that's sleeping, and then that's also working in the church or doing our other job. And so we have that 168 hours a week, but so do the billionaires of the world. They also have 160 hours in the week and they get so much done. So what we want to do is we want to look at like, okay, what are the people that are being most productive, most successful? How are they maximizing their time to work on the things that are most important for them to work on, and still have time for everything else in their life?
Yeah. I want to go back to what you said at the very beginning there. You said, because I made the statement that wearing the many hats is really not where I'm at now. I could understand where you're coming from, because I started off at a small church.
Yeah.
And at the small church, I was hired on as the kids pastor, but I was also the maintenance guy. I was also, the guy who put all the chairs up, took all the chairs down for events or whatnot. I was also we had a kitchen area, the pantry. I was over that. So I did wear a lot of hats there. I was also the janitor at that church. So,
right.
there's just a lot of hats to be put on there. Now I'm at a larger church and they're like, hey, your job is preteen ministry. And like you said, the list doesn't get any shorter because it's a larger church. I mean, the tasks are still there. It's just, it's different.
It's different. It's different. And how you prioritize those things and what you have to do. And we can dive into it in a bit, but of how you figure out when you're going to do those different things and how you're going to do them.
And then you said something about billionaires have the same hours in a week that we do. So, which brings me to a thought. What do you think the difference is being busy in ministry and being effective in ministry? Because I think we would agree there's a huge difference between being productive and being busy.
Yeah. Well, it's so easy in ministry to be all about putting out fires. You gotta fill that ministry, that the nursery worker called out for the third time this month, and you gotta fill that hole. You have a death in your ministry and you got to go provide pastoral care or visit someone in the hospital. You have you did janitorial work, like just last night they came to me and said, hey, that pipe that burst when it iced over 2 weeks ago, it's still leaking. You need to go fix that. So like there's all these different things. And if we spend our time constantly putting out fires, then we're never going to have the time to actually do the work. You'll get home at the end of the day and you'll try to reevaluate and think about what you did. And it's like, I was busy all day long, but I don't know what I did. And so what you want to do is you want to be intentional with the time that you have. And there are fires that you have to put out. No matter how good you get at this, you will always have to put out fires. But if you're intentional with your time and the things that have to get done, you set those as a priority, then when you get home at the end of the day and at the end of the week, you're like, okay, I know that I did what I needed to do this week, and I know that I'm being effective and strategic in the stuff you do. But if you want to be effective, you have to make that decision. You have to pre-decide, these are the things that I'm going to invest my time in. If you're just shooting from the hip, you're just going to be busy doing a bunch of things, and you may be spending your time running in circles instead of actually moving your ministry forward.
Yeah. So one thing that came to my mind there was how would you tell people to basically be able to determine or to be able to differentiate between what is urgent and what's actually important? Like, so how do you discern what's something that, hey, this is something I need to get done this week compared to, oh my gosh, I've got 25 things on my to-do list. Now I'm panicking.
Yeah. So what you want to use is this, it's a grid. I forget there's a fancy name for it, but there's basically this 4-quadrant grid that you have. And you name the 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so, on your axes, you put one on your y-axis, you put important, not important. And on the x-axis, you put urgent, not urgent. Okay. And so when you have that top one, those are things that are, those are things that are not urgent, but they're important. That's that one side. Okay. Then on the right side, that's the first quadrant. On the second quadrant at top right, now you got things that are important and urgent. On the bottom left, you have things that are not important, not urgent. And then you have on the bottom right, you have things that are not important, but they're urgent. So what ends up happening is when we're putting out fires or we're looking at our tasks, we have to determine where are these different things need to be done. Okay. So I'll give you an example from a lead pastor chair. Okay. So we have some trees that's behind our building that are really big, and they're starting to overgrow, and they're starting to knock over they're starting to damage the roof that's on there. So I had my trustees came to me and said, okay, we need to cut down these trees, and it's going to cost this much money for us to cut down these trees. Well, like, that's an important task. Like, because if we don't, like, tornadoes are hit where I am. If a tornado comes through or we get a bad ice storm again, those trees could fall and damage my building and cause way more issues in there. So it's important, but it's also not urgent because the sun's shining outside. I don't need, there's not a hurricane coming. There's not a tornado coming. I don't need to worry about this. So I was like, I think this is important for us to do. But then I also had to look at it as like, okay, let's consider budget constraints. Let's consider that Easter's coming up. Like, this is not necessarily the most time that for us to spend the most time and energy for us to go cut down these trees. Let's go do something else. So from a children's ministry standpoint, if we're talking about that, it's like, okay, I know that it's important for me to go clean up the children's area from what happened on Sunday. I need to go throw away all the papers that we did. I need to put away those supplies. That's an important job, but that's not necessarily urgent until like the end of your week. Okay, now we need to go do those things. So we want to kind of put those things in priority of like, okay, what are the things that absolutely need to be done and the things that don't? And the stuff that's not important, not urgent, that's the stuff you do on your own free time. So scrolling Facebook, you need to do that during your lunch break, because we're getting we're doing those other things that we want to focus most of our time on the important, not urgent side. Because if we're always living in the important and urgent side, then we're just constantly panicking. And because like, we have to get this done, we have to get this done right now. So you want to try to move most of your tasks to that important, not urgent, because if we can focus there, then we will have a lot less stress throughout our week, because we're working on things way out. So it's not like I have to get this done right now.
Yeah, no, I love that. So I have something very similar that I do. But I want to talk about the social media, because you brought that up. And I tell people this all the time. Like, they're like, hey, there's not enough time in the day to get this done. I didn't have enough time to get this done yesterday. And I was like, hey, open up your phone and let's look and see what your screen time was. And let's see if you actually have, you know what I mean? So that's something really important for people to do, because a lot of times we can catch ourselves, man, and 5, 10, 15 minutes goes by and we're sitting there scrolling. So
I used to be really bad about that because so much of my job, because I was in charge of the marketing for the church and marketing for the children's ministry, I was on Facebook. I was on Facebook and I was on Instagram, like just, I need to make a post and, oh, there's the news feed. And now I'm sucked in. And 40 minutes later, what was supposed to be a 5-minute task, I've wasted 40 minutes determining what type of potato chip I am. And that's not what I need to do. So there are tools you can use. Like what I personally use in Chrome, I use this thing called Newsfeed Eradicator. And what that does is that it's a plug into my Chrome. So when I go to Facebook, the newsfeed is gone. I can't, it has like a productivity quote there. So I can't get sucked in. It's just there. And so like, I can still see my notifications. I can still see my groups and pages. So I can still navigate to the places where I need to go. And if I want to go down a rabbit hole, I can, but it's not just right there in front of me to suck me in.
And what is that called?
Newsfeed Eradicator.
So I have something very similar that I do. So it's called, I call it the forward 5. So basically every day, or usually I make it the day before, but I make a list of 5 things that I need to do throughout the week that's going to push me forward in my goals, push me forward in what I'm trying to get done to the week to set me up for success, right? And those 5 tasks are, it's not something as in checking emails, right? We don't put that on there, but something that's really going to help me get done with what I need to do. So my wife and I, we oversee our preteen ministry, which is 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, but we also oversee 1st through 3rd. And so we have a lot of different things we have to get done, but that forward 5 kind of helps me stay on task. It's not that I just do 5 things, right? There's multiple things that we're getting done, but those 5 really help me push and progress forward towards my goals for the week. So
you're doing the most important things. Colin Powell wrote about that in his autobiography, that every single day he would sit down. And Colin Powell, I don't know if you know, he was a general back in the early 90s. He became chief of staff. He was the first Black chief of staff of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for the military. He helped lead Desert Storm back in the 90s. So he wrote in his autobiography that he does that every day, where he sits down and is like, hey, what are the 3 most important things I need to get done today? What are the things where I can add the most value? And if he did, so all the craziness that can happen, and if you're in charge of all of the America's military, there's some fires you got to put out. And he was like, well, these are the 3 things I got to do. These are the things I got to do. So for me, what I do to really help me out, to prioritize what I like to do, is I make theme days for each one of my days. So this applies specifically to when I'm full-time ministry. Bivocational is different, because bivocational, you get it done when you get it done. But even still, when I was bivocational, I tried to, okay, I'm going to do this day, this day. So like on Mondays is meetings and metrics, because we always did staff meeting on Monday. So half the day was spent to that. After spending all day in meetings, like my brain's just mush. I'm not thinking about much. So that's a good time to like, okay, let me track all my numbers. Let me do my pastoral care of like sending out birthday cards and sending out visitor follow-up cards, those type of things. The things that doesn't require a lot of brain work, I'm just being a machine. I'm just writing stuff down. Tuesdays is project days. So that's when I'm really like working on, excuse me, that's when I'm working on like Vacation Bible School, Easter egg hunts. That's when I'm doing the marketing. That's when I'm doing the planning. If I'm going to pick out a new curriculum, that's where I'm looking at, or I'm planning out the next curriculum I'm going to do. Those are the things I'm doing on Tuesdays. Wednesday, we still have midweek service. So Wednesday is when we're prepping for Wednesday night service. But then if there's any projects that didn't quite get complete on Tuesday, or I can do a little bit more work, I'm going to do those on Tuesdays. And then Thursday, because Friday's my day off, Thursday is the day where I prep for Sunday. So, and I, excuse me, that day is completely focused on trying to get everything I need to get done for Sunday. So if at 5:00 when I go home that day, if service is going to start at 6, I'd be ready to go. So that's what all that stuff. And then, and then what I can do with those days, that's where I can fill in the other little menial tasks that need to be done.
I like that. I like the idea of theming your days. I like that a lot. So David, I know this is not really, I guess it kind of pertains to the topic here. So when people are looking at their ministry to-do list, in what sense is it good to delegate some of those tasks?
Yeah. So what you want to do is that you want to try to figure out there are 3 levels of delegation that you're going to do. So the first level of delegation you want to get rid of is the stuff that you just absolutely hate to do. Those things, the things that you hate to do, and the things that you are not good at. those are the things that you need to give away. So like for me as a kids pastor, I hate crafts. I'm really bad at crafts. And like, I know that sacrilege as a children's pastor, because some children's ministries, like if you're not doing a craft during a week, what are you doing? So like that just wasn't me. So I found people that loved crafts, that people at Hobby Lobby knew them by name. At one church, I actually had someone that worked at Hobby Lobby that was my craft person. And so like I delegate, hey, we need a craft for Easter. We need a craft for Mother's Day. We need a craft for Father's Day. Instead of me trying to figure out and try to pick something off Oriental trading that I'm not passionate about, I empowered them to like, hey, go do this thing. Yeah. The second thing, the second level is the stuff that you may be good at, but you don't necessarily have the time to do. You can better spend your time doing other things. So this is the stuff like when I had small group ministry, I could go and prep all the small group boxes because we did Orange, and Orange takes a ton of different supplies. Like that would take 2-3 hours out of my day, so out of my week to do. So what I did is I found a retired couple. They were newly retired. They wanted to serve. They had all this extra time on their hands. So I asked them like, hey, will you come in on Thursdays and prep all the small group boxes we have? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. They love to do that. And they did that for me for years. Of every single Thursday, 2-3 hours a week, they would come in and stuff all the boxes for me. And so that really helped free up my time and my space. And the third level, which is the hardest one, is giving away things that you love to do. So I love to teach and I love to preach from the stage. That's something I love to do. For me, I love technology. And so I loved making the PowerPoints and making the slides and thinking through the service. But I realized that my time would be better spent doing other things and really preparing my ministry for the future, for when the time inevitably comes that I leave. I owe it to other people to train them on how to do this so that it can continue after me. So I had to bite the bullet and give it away. And even though they weren't as good at it as I was, it still gave me an opportunity to train them and teach them to it, so that they could be better and they could continue in the ministry after I left.
No, that's good. Yeah, I think delegating is one of the toughest things for most people. I know it was for me for a long time, because, we don't like to look at it in the sense of, I always tell people this, especially my leaders. So I'm like, there's 3 different people. Right? You have the person who ultimately doesn't want to delegate because they don't want to put their workload off on someone else. Right? You also have the person who doesn't want to delegate because they love the spotlight as far as teaching goes. Right? And then you have the third person who at the same kind of ties in with the second person, but they don't like to delegate because they are intimidated by other people's gifts. So I found myself, and I'm sure there's more, and we could disagree and agree on some of those, but that's kind of where I found myself a lot. And, so I had to start delegating that stuff. And once I did, man, there was so much relief that came from that. And I found out that, it's, I was reading a book, and, the guy was he made a great point. He said, it's not about, when you're delegating, every task that gets done, even as children's ministry leaders, as you being the senior pastor. So what happens in the children's ministry or the youth ministry, it always points back to the main leader. You know what I mean? It's like, that's how they're getting things done. It's a reflection of leadership. So, but no, I love that point. I love the delegation and finding people's gifts and utilizing that. So
yeah. So one of the exercises I do, and what your three guys are there, and one of the things that comes into play when you're delegating is that you can feel like if you give all those things away, you're not going to have enough to do. That's never going to happen. Your tasks are just going to change. And if you want to become a better leader, then what you need to do is the idea is that you are working yourself out of a job. And as you work and you give away each one of your things, and what ends up happening is that as you're working yourself out of a job, you get new tasks, because now I'm not the one setting out the curriculum. I'm not the one teaching the curriculum. I'm training the people to do that. I'm trusting them to do that and helping them to do that. So one of the exercises that I love to do, this is not mine. I got this from standout book by Marcus Buckingham. And he says, you make a love it and loathe it list. So basically you just take a sheet of paper, you make 2 columns on the sheet of paper, and every single task you do, you write down, did you love it or did you loathe it or hate it? And if anything drained you, if anything sucked the energy out of you, that goes on the loathe side. And if anything loved you, if you loved it, like I feel energized, I wish I could do this all day, that goes on the love it side. And then when you're done, you do that the whole week. And when you're done, you look at the tasks. All the things on the loathe it side, that's the stuff you get to give away. That's the stuff you got to find. Okay, I need to find people that can take this off my plate. And then the love it side, you can hold on to that stuff for a good long while, and you may never give some of those things away. But those are the things you want to hold on to. But then you can let go of some of the others.
I love that. In your own words, in your own opinion here, what is the risk, or what is the I guess you would say the risk? What are some harmful things that could happen for a person or a children's pastor, whether it be a youth pastor or even a senior pastor? What is something that could happen to the person who has this huge ministry to-do list and they're not getting anything done, and it's actually taking, my pastor always tells us this. He says, don't get so caught up in doing the work for the Lord that you forget the Lord of the work. And so what kind of advice would you have for someone who maybe is in that particular area?
Where you're getting a whole bunch of stuff done, but your relationship with Jesus is falling away. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. So this goes back to where we're talking about important, urgent, all those other things. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you set your priorities of like, what is the most important thing in your life? And what I always tell new ministers, new pastors when they first come in, no matter where they're serving, is that you got to make sure that you maintain your relationship with Jesus so that you love him as much, if not more, when you're done serving in ministry, because ministry can chew you up and spit you out. And so what you got to do is you got to make sure that you are doing the things you need to do. So like for kids pastors, it's tough because we never get to go to service. And there's some kids pastors that are great at it, but I was never one of them. If I got to go to adult service twice a year, I was killing it. I was at one church for 7 years, and it wasn't until I was there at year 6 that I was finally able to go to service once or twice a month. It takes that long to develop your people and to let go of the pride to let people go. And so what you need to do is you have to put the practices in place that is going to maintain your relationship with Jesus. So you say like, oh, I never get to go to service. Okay, great. I totally understand. Let's think about, what does the adult service do for us? It does. And I think it does like 4 things. It does, It provides corporate worship. It provides community. It provides time for prayer and Bible study, and then there's some kind of teaching that's a part of it. Okay, so those are the 4 components. All right. So then what you got to do is you got to figure out how to substitute each one of those things in your life. How can you put these that doesn't happen on Sunday morning at 9 and 11? Because at Sunday morning, 9 and 11, you're with a bunch of children. You're not there. So like if you're listening to a teaching, get a teaching, then get your pastor's sermon and listen to it. Watch it on YouTube or get a podcast. If it's not available, find another pastor, go listen to them. I've been listening to pastors for years that, I've attended their churches. Some of them I've never been to their churches, but they have discipled me and taught me from their sermon because I've been listening to them every single week. Because my pastor sermon wasn't always available. The second thing was prayer and Bible study. So like you need to have a significant prayer life. You need to read the Bible that's not part of your sermon prep. That's never been a struggle for me, but you want to, like, if the only time you're reading Matthew is because you're teaching on Matthew this week, you need to have a regular Bible rhythm, regular prayer time that's outside of your normal ministry time. And then the community, like you're missing interacting with other adults and you're always in charge. So you need to go join a small group, go join a life group, cell group, whatever your church calls it. Go, and if church doesn't have that, go make one. Go find one where you're not necessarily the person in charge. You're just there, and you're just be there with community and talk about the things. And the last one is corporate worship of worship and singing. And so, put some worship music on, find a good playlist that you like. I got a guitar back here. I tried to, I learned how to play guitar just so I could worship my own self, and I wouldn't have to listen to Brandon Lake while I'm worshiping, so I could worship just with God. So that, those are the things that, those are the things you got to do. You got to add into your life so you can maintain that relationship with Jesus outside of your ministry.
That's so good. So good. David, last question I have for you. If a ministry leader listening today feels overwhelmed and buried in task, whether it be a new ministry leader or a seasoned ministry leader, it doesn't really matter. But what is the very first step they should take this week to start building that ministry grid that you're talking about?
Yeah. What I would suggest you do is you need to sit down and you need to write out every single thing you got to do this week. And because there are some things that you're going to repeat every single week. And so go ahead and write out all those things. And then once you write out all those things, then you need to prioritize them. When are you actually going to get these things done? Because sometimes if you are not a person that likes lists, if you're not a person that likes to make to-do lists, what can happen is you feel like you have all these things to do, but your brain can't hold all of that together. Jim Weideman, a mentor of mine, would always say, your brain is not for remembering. Your brain is for thinking. And so take all that stuff that's up here and put it down on something. Write it down on a notepad. Use these note-taking programs. Use these to-do list programs that are out there. We were talking about Basecamp earlier. I've used Asana. Personally, I use OneNote. Take all that stuff, write it down, put it down on a list, and then prioritize, okay, when am I going to get this done? Am I doing this Monday? Am I doing this Tuesday or Wednesday? And then when you put out, these are the days we're going to do them, then you don't have to worry about setting up for Sunday on Monday. You worry about that on Thursday when you actually have to get it done. And then Monday, you can focus on the things that you have to get done for Monday. And once you start doing that, you can start handling, you end up with more margin in your brain space, because you're not so stressed out about all the stuff you got to do later, because you're focused on this one task. And now that I'm done with this task, let's move to the next one.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice for sure. Yeah. So you said you also use what's called OneNote.
Mm-hmm.
What is that exactly?
It's a Microsoft program. It comes with the Office suite. It's one of the Ugly Stepchild's like publisher program, but I've been using it since 2005, and so I'm just kind of stuck. I was at one church where they wanted us to use Asana, and I was literally just taking my to-do list from OneNote and copying it into Asana just to make them happy, because it didn't work for me. But what the key is, the other problem that you can run into is you can try to find a system, and you're constantly trying a new system, but you don't need to do that. Find a system that works and stick with that system. Because if you're constantly if you're constantly changing the system, like upending everything you're doing to come up with a new system, you're wasting energy trying to find the perfect system. There is no perfect system out there. What the perfect system is the system that works for you. So find the thing. So if you're a paper pencil person, use paper pencil. If you're a computer person, use a computer. Do what you got to do that works you, that helps you stay on top of the tasks that you have.
It's awesome, David. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Hey, before we wrap up, just tell us a couple things. How can people connect with you? And let's talk about your book a little bit too before we get into it.
So if you want to find me or connect with me, davidreneau.org, Reneau. I'm sure you got it in the show notes there, but you can grab, that's my website. That's where you can connect with me on social. I'm on all the platforms with pretty much that name. Facebook is a little different, but you can search for me there. And then I just put out a book back in September called Next Level Kidmin. And so I talk a little bit about this, but this is designed for the kids pastor that has been in ministry for a year or two. And like, you figured out Sunday, like, how to, like, the kids aren't running crazy, but like, you got Sunday happening, but you just want to take your ministry to the next level. So I took my 15 years of ministry experience, and I gave very practical advice in this book. So You can find that at davidreneau.org, but you can also get it on Amazon, where a lot of other great books. And then if you get this, it comes with $75 of free resources. So volunteer job descriptions, volunteer flow charts. I have a kids lead team curriculum. I have a policy procedure manual, all of that, a discipline plan for your rules and consequences, all of that is $20 for the book, but you get all that $75 worth of resources for free. Just from getting the book. So,
man, that's a gem itself, huh?
Yeah.
I like that. All right. Well, David, again, thanks for coming on. Everybody, all the book and all those links will be dropped in the show notes. Until next time, God bless. See you next week.
Thank you.